From the backstretch at Saratoga, this is Loose on the Lead with Steve Bick and Seth Merrow.
Good morning and welcome to Loose on the Lead on this Sunday morning. I said it earlier, boo-hoo, the last Loose on the Lead as it is the last Sunday of the meet. But we're happy to be here this morning on a gorgeous day. Don't forget today there's a $250,000 carryover in the Pick Six, the low roller contest. You get your last shot there, so keep that in mind. They're giving away a cooler jug on your way out, so a special giveaway today. So keep all of that in mind if you're headed up to the track, and if you are, it's a gorgeous day. But it's a gorgeous day to do a little TV with my co-host, Steve Bick. Dean Reeves is in as well. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. I am thrilled to be here. I didn't know if Steve, I've been begging to get on this show. You win races all over the world, and you can't get on his show. It's unbelievable.
He's tough. He's tough.
I made a promise, and boy, I called at just the right time because he and Patty are on a flight home to Atlanta at 12:30.
Yep. So just under the wire, as they say.
Exactly. And it's been a tremendous summer again for you guys. And Dean, in so many ways, I mean, your point for this meet, you've got a fairly far-flung operation these days with multiple trainers and a lot of horses in training. But what, I think 9-10 wins to...
Yeah, they gave me credit for 7 in the book, but then they don't count some of the ones like partnership with Randy Hill and some of those. But I would say we had 9 or 10 wins, and it was a great meet. We can't complain.
Well, your operation, talk a little bit about really what has been sort of the second generation, post the early success that you had. How has your business and your approach to the game changed?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, we did see, after we had that great run with Mucho Macho Man and did really well there, we just saw a real drop in the quality of the horses and so forth. And it just led to, fortunately, hooking up with Jimmy Gladwell and his wife Martha and Nellie and Chetley and helping me procure some horses that have raised the bar for us. And from that, we have worked at yearlings, and we've also looked at the weanling market. And then I think one of the bigger things is getting involved in the New York bred program. That's made a big difference in that. And we've been able to get New York breds that have run open company. So it's been twofold for us to get those kind of horses. And I've seen the stable. We've turned it around and gotten some nice horses, and Lord willing, we can keep it up. We've been very blessed.
Well, I had you in earlier in the meet, so
you're okay.
Yeah.
This guy, you got to really get on him to get on the show.
But we talked about it then. If you get a good New York bred, man, you have all kinds of options.
You really do.
Yeah.
I mean, and as I've said before, you can come in here and run the New York bred stakes, not against these killers that were 650,000, and let your horse develop a little bit, pick up some of that money, and then if they're good enough, okay, then you can step out there and run against.
Did you guys play in the New York bred sale up here this year?
We did. Yeah, we always go in there and buy a little something in spite of the fact that I don't need anymore. So,
how many, if you had to? That you're the principal owner, how many do you and Patty have in training right now?
We have probably about 45 or so in training, which is I never thought I'd have that many.
No one ever does.
No.
Look at Peter Brandt is probably the best. When he called Chad and said, Chad, I'm thinking of getting back in the game. Maybe just a couple, 2-3 horses. I hope that's enough. And now he owns Payson Park again. He's got.
Well, I mean, and it's really not my fault. It's Jimmy Gladwell's fault, because he calls and says, Dean, this is one we really need for the stable. And I'm like, oh, okay. He said, it ain't going to cost much, and we got to have this one for the stable. Well, after you've 6, 7, 8, 9 down the road with that, but I'm such a sucker. So,
They say you're a soft touch.
Soft touch. I like that better.
one of the things we're going to do today, last show of the season, and I really wanted to have some positive messaging. It's been a star-crossed season.
It has.
There's certainly, I mean, no one is leaving here unaffected by what transpired this summer.
Right.
You're joining us first. Phil Gleaves is going to join us next. Linda Rice at the bottom of the hour, and John Secura as well from Hillendale.
Yeah.
And everybody, I think the lineup has a positive feeling about the game. And I really felt, Seth and I yesterday, we were trying to put together something, special to send people off into the fall. And Dean, I'd love your message to stakeholders and horse players and the industry after a period, frankly, that followed a Triple Crown that was arduous in many ways. What do you think everyone industry-wide should be feeling and thinking as we look to the fall?
It's been a tough meet, and really probably a tough 6 months that we've gone through. But I think if we learn from these things and continue to try to improve, the game is special. It's a worldwide game. It means it creates a lot of positive, a lot of happiness for a lot of people. And I don't think we need to forget that. But at the same time, I'm in favor of HISA and what they're doing. And I look at it as they're really maybe 6 months old in terms of being in this business. When you go back and look at the NFL, they constantly make changes when they see things they need to do to protect their players, because look, they have issues too. I have a friend that lives in my neighborhood that had to quit work, that played in the NFL due to head trauma. Okay. The NFL has that. We have our problems, but if we'll support HISA, let them see what works, what doesn't work, improve on it, make the changes, and continue to work toward protection of these horses, because everybody in this business loves these horses. Yes. They want it to be zero. I don't think there's anybody that wouldn't say that. So I think that we as a industry need to push forward and constantly look at every data and everything we can do prior to racing, after racing, to improve our game.
That's an encouraging. It's an encouraging posture. I'm personally, I'm hopeful of what HISA can bring. I also am very supportive of HBPA's position in this, and have obvious concerns that we talk about constantly on the radio. There's obvious challenges, but I think the most important part of this, because I want to now ask you about your feeling on the surface issues, because that has come to a head here in the wake of last weekend. As somebody who has bred horses, who's got stallion seasons with Mucho Macho Man, and have retired mares and had them covered, what is your feeling about what we do next in this debate that is raging immediately about surface?
Let me say one thing before I get to the surface for HPPA and HISA. Look, everybody is a stakeholder in this, and those groups need to get in a room and figure out and discuss the positives to work together to move forward. And we're not going to solve anything with lawyers, okay? But they can go in there and say, listen, this group says you need to improve this over here. This is too stringent, or it's not stringent enough. This needs to be, and they need to have those conversations and improve and help each other work toward those. So that's what I'd like to see, rather than spending a bunch of time and money with lawyers trying to kill things off. get in the same room and let's solve some things.
Yeah. I had
Now,
Lisa Lazarus in, and she's open to change. And this was a huge project to have a nationwide.
Listen,
so
we've been going down this road 100 years.
Yeah.
You can't solve it there. So, look, everybody's got an opinion, but if they will get in the room together and put people, veterinarians, trainers, people that understand this game, and work through those things, maybe a year from now or 2 years from now, it'll continue to evolve and improve. So that's my soapbox on that part.
I appreciate it.
But with regard to the surface, I'm not so sure that issue's in the dirt tracks. I don't know that is the data showing that the Tapeta tracks and so forth, synthetic, are easier on them? Yes. And I think there is a future for those surfaces. I'm glad to see that Belmont will be adding that. And I think that's a positive that we need to let people know, yeah, we are moving. NYRA's moving toward that at Belmont, adding that surface. I think David O'Rourke will give a lot of thought process with his people about what to do, whether to add that here at Saratoga. So we see it already at Gulfstream Park. So I think there is a future for synthetic surfaces. Has been well received in Canada, and so
Presque Isle
and others, So I think we're going to see more of that surface, especially when we get the kind of rain we had this year. It would have been nice to have had that. It's a great option, but I don't think we can sit here and say we're going to just not run on dirt. I don't think that's good for the industry.
Steve Christ and Bill Kasner, they didn't debate it head to head, but I had Bill Kasner and Steve Christ on the show last week, and they both make solid points. Steve Christ, I thought, brought up an interesting number in terms of statistics when he said, considering how many fatalities how they've dropped, they've been cut by a third in 10 years on dirt, and you're really talking less than one horse per 1,000 starts. And Steve's question was, is the impact going to be that great? I mean, if right now, as I quoted to you over the course of the summer, unfortunately, about 350 horses a year, if we go to synthetics, is 310 going to, is that going
Does
to,
that move
how
the
is
needle?
that right? How is that necessarily going to?
And if you talk to horsemen, there are cons with the synthetic surfaces as
well,
well. So it's not
some of that
panacea.
has actually. We'll talk to Phil Gleaves next, and Linda Rice as well. And Linda, I mean, certainly the Rice family operates at Presque Isle and start a lot of horses there. But I thought Steve made a valuable point that even if you do go all synthetic, it's not going to stop the harping and the critics from attacking the game.
Right.
I mean, if 280 horses a year instead of 350, they're what?
Right. I don't think eliminating dirt's the answer. That's not where we need to be looking. I think the more we can do prior to racing is more important than what we do the day of the race.
No, there's progress. There's all kinds of progress on that. We had two different conversations this past week. We had Dr. Kevin Keegan, or Dr. Kevin? Yeah, Kevin Keegan from University of Missouri. They've just installed the standing CT scan equipment. And I mean,
and I'm in favor of that.
Well, it's
now that I think
it's expensive. It's 600,000 to 800,000 a unit.
But listen, take a percentage of purse money or something, but buy it and get it in there, because I think those are the places that's money well spent.
And the biometrics and the wearable technology, I think, is moving in a direction that'll be helpful as well.
I agree.
Thorough stride. Yep.
I agree.
So the best news when it comes to Dean and Patty Reeves is how your passion for the game has grown. Started so modestly, and the acquisition of Mucho Macho Man out of
and that's something.
And it just triggered, shows from 0 to 60 in no time at all.
Well, we owe a lot to our trainers. and the people that help us. We have a nice team put together. We're having a lot of fun, and that's what it's all about. And as long as we continue to have fun, we'll be here. You know, I just am just thrilled to be on the show with you. I mean, you know, at least you got me in early. Yes. This guy I had to beg and really ride him to get on the show.
We will get. I owe you the radio visit.
You owe me the radio visit. And you haven't mentioned winning at Ascot with Porter Fortuna. I mean, only two. You know, American owners go over there. I mean, with their horses, and I have some partners. But my gosh, that's a big deal.
Well, don't tell Randy that I had you on.
Oh, I'm not. Oh, no.
Because he's been asking all summer.
Boy, do you know the pressure I had when he won first, and then I had to get a win? I wouldn't have been able to sit in the box next to him.
Well,
I just wonder what the pressure of dressing in the morning when you have to sit next to him all day long.
Oh, it's tough, but I go a different route. I'm a coat and tie guy. He's a little bit. He dresses for night during the day.
That's so true. There is no more fun section of
it's a great Lee's in there. We have a great.
It really is. It's a tremendous couple of rows. And listen, the whole building, the whole clubhouse is a lot of fun. But that section with George Weaver and Randy and
Mike Rapoli's in front of us, and you know, it's such a great group of owners. We cheer for each other when they're racing, even when they beat us, and there's a lot of camaraderie there, and that's what makes going to the races a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, it's fun to have you, Dean Reeves, everybody, on this getaway day for us on Loose on the Lead. Let's take our first break. We've got Phil Gleaves joining us next off of Thin White Duke's win, a storybook win yesterday in the inaugural running of the Harvey Pack. And of course, Steve Christ's involvement in the ownership makes this really magical yesterday. Steve had to head back downstate, but we will watch the race. We'll talk to Phil. David Donk, of course, taking over the training with Phil retiring, but still, Phil bred the horse. Really, and beat you guys. Big Invasion, who ran much better. That was a head lifter.
He ran well. Look, that horse put it together and beat us, and we'll get our shot back at him again.
No doubt.
But Big Invasion ran well off of a long layoff and a tough trip over to England, but I was proud of him. He put in a great effort.
Dean Reeves, everybody. Stay with us. Loose on the Lead, Capital OTB. Back after this, Phil Gleaves joined us, and ahead, Linda Rice and John Sakura of Hillendale Farm. Back after this.
Turn your love of racing into savings with equine discounts through the NTRA. Purchase through equine discounts and receive great savings on well-known brands like John Deere, Sherwin-Williams, Big Ass Fans, Farmers Insurance, and Office Depot. Join thousands of other equine members and support companies that give back to the sport we all love. Call 866-678-4289 or visit equinediscounts.com to start saving today.
The Clubhouse Racebook is the Capital Region's new home for racing and sports. 25,000 square feet of Vegas-style action with live wagering on the best horse racing from around the world. 260 flat-screen televisions and state-of-the-art wagering terminals. So don't miss out. The fun is only minutes away at 711 Central Avenue, Albany, just off Exit 5 of I-90. And don't forget, if you can't make it to the Clubhouse, you can always wager online 24/7 at capitalotb.com.
Capital OTB is now streaming live on Roku. The RTN Racing channel on Roku lets you watch OTB TV live through your Roku device or your Amazon Fire Stick, rather than being limited to computers and mobile devices, which means you can now watch OTB live wherever you are. Simply open Roku, scroll to find the RTN channel, then click on OTB TV. OTB TV on Roku. Try it now.
We're back on Loose on the Lead on this Sunday morning. Thanks to Dean Reeves for visiting with us before he heads back to Georgia. He and Patty right now, though, happy to have Phil Gleaves join us in the wake of yesterday's win in the Harvey Pack, the inaugural Harvey Pack, which is the rechristened Lucky Coin. I typically used to give the trophy out for the Lucky Coin. I did for several years. Extravagant Kid won it for Brendan Walsh, and Trombetta and Mrs. Weber won it as well with I Dear You. Gave out the hardware. But yesterday was special because the Lucky Coin became the Harvey Pack, and for Steve Christ, who of course had the long association with Harvey in several different manners. Whether it was Steve's management at NYRA, whether it was DRF and the seminars and all of Harvey's offerings as a pundit, it was really magical. Countless people on hand in a rooting capacity. Jay Privman in from California. Jay was tickled as could be. Mike Welch as well, and Pete Fornatel, who of course was worked with Harvey on the book, May the Horse Be With You. There was just, it was gleeful yesterday, Phil. And of course, everybody roots for you and honk for donk. I mean, this was a win-win-win.
And when you sat down, you said you didn't sleep much last night.
I didn't sleep much last night, Seth. I just kept waking up, replaying the race. I've watched the replay 20 times, and he still wins it every time. But I kept waking up and looking at this race, and it was just a fantastic. It was second only to winning the Travis with Wise Times as far as excitement in a horse race.
Yeah, Frank Miramati tipped his hat to the whole situation, relating Steve Chris and Thin White Duke getting up and getting it done. He's been a nice horse for you throughout the career, certainly.
He has. He's had 29 starts. He's been a good horse. He was a good 2-year-old, won a couple of stakes for us, broke his maiden in the funny side up here on the dirt, won the aspirant over at Finger Lakes. So he's been a nice horse all along. Got a little bit untracked as a 3-year-old, had some physical issues. We gave him a long time off, and there's a lesson there. And he came back and has just been doing great.
What were your expectations going into the race yesterday?
Well, the expectations all week were that he was going to run super. We couldn't envision this story happening with Steve coming up here and everything. But we knew we were going to run big, given the right kind of pace, the right kind of running style. He's a horse that needs to get to the outside. He didn't in his last start, no fault of Johnny V's, but he was just pinned down on the inside. He doesn't want to be there. Yesterday's smaller field, Jose was able to wheel him out, and you saw what happened.
What was the reaction amongst all of you as he got out and started to make that run?
We were screaming. It was becoming a crescendo. Steve and I watched it in the box together, and it was emotional. It was just great.
Yeah, it's certainly a stakes win up here at Saratoga. Talk a little bit about the name.
Thin White Duke, I'm a huge David Bowie fan. And for the Bowie fans out there, they'll know that one of his stage personas over the years was the Thin White Duke. And he had a couple of albums as the Thin White Duke, which were really great musically. So I always knew I would name a horse Thin White Duke. With my wife's blessing, she said, okay, you can do that.
I want to ask, though, Phil, about your role in the horse as a breeder. Aberdeen Alley.
Right.
Who has been very productive. Miami Cat, right?
Won a listed race up here.
Yeah.
Yes and yes.
Yes and yes.
Still running. And everything comes full circle. I trained for Russell Reineman. I won the Travis here for Russell Reineman. When he passed, his family approached me and had a few mares they were trying to disperse. Asked me if I wanted to acquire any of them. And I looked at the mares' pedigrees. One of them was inbred to Danzig, who was the finest racehorse since Secretariat. Certainly the finest horses I've been around or seen. And so I thought, let me take a shot with that one. And that was Aberdeen Alley.
Wow.
And she was unraced herself. I have a geneticist friend that helps me out a lot with matings. We picked out some stallions that were not expensive. And she's just been a great producer. Had 9 foals. 11 foals, 8 of them to the race, 7 winners, and the offspring have made better than $1.5 million.
And you kind of alluded to it earlier, saying won the funny side, but a New York bred. But you look down the page. I mean, obviously with the funny side going off the page, there are New York bred races, but you've been racing this one for the most part against Open Company and doing very well.
Yeah, with the incentive, with the breeding incentives up here, the New York. I don't have to tell you guys, the New York bred program is the best state program in the country, and we wanted to get the incentives. The purses were $162,000 to run in there, and the allowance races, quite frankly, were bigger than the Harvey Pack yesterday.
And as the breeder, you get to double dip a little bit.
Yes, I was looking that up last night. Yeah.
This is why you can't
That's
sleep.
why I can't sleep. I was checking out the Owners Awards, the Breeders' Awards. I was calculating. Yeah.
I don't blame you.
Not to quickly or too quickly veer into sort of the topic of the day and the topic of the summer.
But we're going to do it, aren't we?
But we're going to do it anyway.
Okay.
What's interesting about this mare,
yeah,
and her productivity, Phil, there is now, after the summer and after the difficulties at Churchill in the spring and the Triple Crown, each of the Triple Crown Saturdays having incidents. One of the things that I've seen floated out there is, we have to stop breeding unraced bloodstock, unraced mares. And frankly, if you look at her page, and this was a Charles Knuckles family for several generations, and before that, Mr. Reineman himself had, but there's really only one winner of any note in basically the first 4 dams. Mm-hmm. So when you look, if you were to look at this page in a catalog, it would be fairly barren. And yet she's produced nothing but sound horses that have had fairly full campaigns. Not every one of those babies, but as you mentioned, when you're learning about how to look at catalogs, one of the things you do is you see the mare's produce record. How many of them got to the races, first of all? How many were winners? How many were stakes horses, black type? So in terms of her productivity, she flies in the face of this, bubbling dialogue that, we shouldn't be racing produce of horses that didn't have a robust record.
Right. It's just nonsense. I read one article where some person suggested that if a horse is retired due to injury, he shouldn't go in the gene pool. That's just ridiculous. That would exclude Danzig. That would exclude Mr. Prospector. It's just a ridiculous statement. To your point, we do things a little bit differently. Steve has the same philosophy as I have the same, and Dave, myself and Dave came up under Woody Stevens, who had the same philosophy of running these horses when they're right. This is his 4th start yesterday, and we've done that with all of our horses, and including all of Aberdeen Alley's offspring.
Well, and even then, you mentioned some of the sires that you've used with her. Miami Cat, who powerful goer.
Full disclosure, when I acquired Aberdeen Alley, she was in foal to Miami Cat.
Oh, that's interesting.
That was a bonus. I wanted the mare.
So, okay,
because
so you got Miami Cat out of it.
He was a bonus.
Gotcha.
And he was by a nondescript sign named Powerful Goer.
Powerful Goer.
Son of Easy Goer. Stands or stood in the Midwest in Chicago or somewhere like that. But he was able to win a $100,000 stake up here, back on 8 days rest from his previous start.
Well, Yes and Yes, and now is both by Sydney's Candy.
Yep.
And Thin White Duke by Dominus.
Right. Again, I have to tip my hat to a geneticist friend of mine who helps me with these things, and he knows that all these mares can't be compatible with every stallion. So we've been able to find some less expensive stallions to go to, but they've produced. Sydney's Candy was a great racehorse, one that was Pacific Classic, I believe. But I would say that Yes and Yes is probably his best offspring. Dominus was a solid racehorse, won the Dwyer, won the Bernard Baruch up here for Todd. I would say Thin White Duke is his best offspring.
Well, they say that every stallion gets at least one big horse.
Right.
That's the tag that comes with stallions. I just think that every opportunity we have to I don't want to say shoot down these kinds of theories, but there is so much just sort of chaotic reaction to what has transpired. I mean, the reality is, and you mentioned Woody Stevens and your time with David and who else? Patty Reynolds and Denise Snappanato and everybody that that grew out of that camp.
Billy Badgett.
Billy Badgett. Yeah. You go back decades. You bring up Billy Badgett. To be honest, these two incidents this summer, there hasn't been
since
one
since
Go for
One.
And you're talking 1990.
Yeah.
And Steve Christ with us on radio this week. I mean, you think about that. It's 33 years.
Right. Since
how many tens of thousands of races and hundreds of thousands of starts has there been in between?
So let's not jump to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Exactly. I mean, this was as big an aberration, a statistical aberration. We call it chaotic number theory. For those of you that know anything about roulette, you spin that wheel 10,000 times. Every number will come up about the same number of times over the course of 10,000 spins. But in a course of 20 spins, you might see the same number 4 times. It's chaotic number theory. And between the rain and between just circumstance, to have this happen the way it did, it is an aberration as opposed to any kind of a trend.
Yeah,
I mean, we were trending in the exact opposite direction in terms of driving these numbers down.
And we're still driving them down, and we're going to continue to drive them down. So let's not jump to make any major changes right now. Synthetics, there's a place for them. I don't believe that we should only race on synthetics. We need to keep dirt racing. I don't mind if it's mandated that we only train on synthetics. That might be a way to go. If it's proven that synthetics are better for our horses, maybe that's the thing to do. But still give me the option. Give everybody the option to race on dirt with these pedigrees. Until you change these pedigrees, 4 generations down the line, we need an option to race on dirt, grass, and synthetic.
There you go.
And it seems like maybe that's, they're talking about Belmont's going to have a synthetic. It seems to have worked out the 3 options on a Gulfstream.
Yeah.
So we'll see if that's the way it goes. I also, because you alluded to it, and I wanted to bring it up because I asked the guys to pull up the 1986 crackers.
Wow, cool.
And kind of in a similar come from behind as we saw yesterday.
Yeah,
we're going to look at Wise Times over Broad Brush, Dancing Connection third,
right there.
Personal Flag will run fourth. And there was a great, when I went and did research yesterday, there's a great article written after the race by Bill Knack in Sports Illustrated titled Day of the Disciple.
Yes.
And has some quotes from you and Woody. But give us some memories here as he comes down on the outside and Wise Times gets it done for you.
So this was a great race. Jerry Belly rode him. He was a horse that lingered on his left lead. He switched like 40 yards from the wire. He was a horse that loved the mud. And we were blessed that he had mud in the Haskell, which he won, and mud in the Super Derby, which he won. And the night before the Travis, Woody and I had dinner at the Wishing Well, and the rain came down like only it can in Saratoga. And Woody said over his scotch, "We're going to have the exacta tomorrow," meaning the Travis. And I think we did, but they did DQ'd Broad Brush, and Woody got put up to second. Yeah, but it was my second year as a trainer. I trained in 1985 in Canada for Frank Stronach, and it was my first year as a public trainer, and my first client was Mr. Reineman, who sent me Wise Times.
Yeah, that the article talks about the night at the Wishing Well, and and there was some speculation they were gauging because the rain was going to scratch, and so things all worked out very nicely.
Just things have a way of working out, I guess.
Yeah, very good. And give us some memories because you came up, and I would assume you would tout him as a mentor. You came up with Woody.
Oh, he was the greatest. He was the greatest. The spinaways today. 1979, Woody had a filly named Smart Angle coming to the spinaway. I was galloping her. Woody used to blow out his horses day before or 2 days before. Most trainers did back then. I was on her. He said, let's get a nice half mile into her. 2 days before the spin away, she won a half in 45 flat. You can look that up to verify it. It didn't phase Woody in the least. We ran her 2 days later, won the spin away. Just a phenomenal trainer. We talk about this horse running 4 times. That was commonplace for Woody to do that, to run. Everybody talks
during a 24-day meet.
Yeah, well, maybe not 4 times during that meet, during 24-day meet, but people talk about Conquista Cielo and what a feat it was to run on Monday, win the Met Mile, come back on Saturday and win the Belmont. What people might need to be reminded of, the Belmont was his 4th race in 28 days. Conquista Cielo. It was phenomenal.
Well, because back when they could win the Met and the Belmont, and then you had and it just.
So when we were deciding on who was going to train our horses, Steve and Ken, our other business partner, and I got together. I had suggested strongly David because of these reasons. Oh. I know how David thinks. He knows how I think. We don't have too many conversations. We discussed Thin White Duke maybe 2 weeks ago, and I asked him. I said, we'd like to try and run in these 2 races. If you think he's only going to be able to run in 1, let's wait for the pack, because Steve would like to run in the pack.
Perfect.
And he said, Phil, he's doing so good, let's run in both. So I gave him the option. And they said, let's run in both. I loved it. And he made a brilliant decision, simple decision that was invaluable to me. He said, Phil, it's after the last race, let's train him at Clerk Court between the last race and now. He came over here every day, just came around here, just nice, got him away from all the anxiety over there.
Interesting.
And he came over our relaxed horse to the paddock yesterday.
That's interesting. From that standpoint, talk a little bit too, and Linda Rice is going to join us next. John Secura, by the way, had to beg off because he's going home. But the training aspect, the pressure, and I'm sure Dave has, and you've observed what's going on, where trainers now are basically dealing with outsiders looking over their shoulders in a way that they've never dealt with before. There's certainly a lot of well-intentioned administrative aspects being introduced, including a veterinarian sign-off now 72 hours before entry
time. Yep.
Or after. Once horses are entered, there has to be a vet that has signed off on an exam within 72 hours of the horse running. They've had similar scenarios. California, in particular, Santa Anita, has instituted a raft. I mean, just a litany of things. I mean, in terms of signing up to train. I mean, to have a recorded workout. It has put the horseman under a microscope. There's already tremendous pressures anyway. You've got an atmosphere, Phil, that you can also speak to in terms of the challenge of a medium to small size outfit, getting owners, retaining owners. I mean, the amount of and the sheer volume of horses going to a elite group of trainers is a problem no one seems to want to really address. Talk about this atmosphere. I mean, it feels like you got out literally right in advance of this, this incursion and this rather odious situation that finds, trainers being dictated to by people who have never put their hands on a horse, essentially.
Yeah. A couple of points there. So as far as the pre-race protocols, I don't think we can go wrong by having more checks on the horses. Most trainers will welcome that. There'll be a few trainers that won't. There'll be a few trainers that will give a horse a shot of butte the day before the 3-day check just to make sure he passes that. So there's always going to be a handful of trainers that will try to skirt the rules. I lost my mic there. I don't know if that's a problem. My wife says I don't need a mic. So I don't think that the bulk of trainers are going to be too concerned. Like you said, it's just one more pressure point for a trainer who has a lot of pressure points during the morning. A lot of different things can cause anxiety for a trainer. And this might be one more of them. The super trainer thing, I'd seen that coming for a while. It's not good for the game. I believe in capitalism. I believe people should have 200 horses if they want, but the same people cannot tell me it's good for the industry as a whole. There's just no way it's good for the industry as a whole to get rid of the smaller outfits. And the smaller outfits are going to go out as time goes on more and more. I was always going to retire at 65. I did it at 64 because of the help situation. And most of the help gravitates to these bigger outfits. They pay more. They win more races, big races, so they can give more bonuses. So as an employee, you're going to go to the bigger outfits, which leaves a group of people that they don't want. And really, the smaller trainers don't want either, but there's nobody else to work for them. And that's why I got out, because of the health situation. I did not like coming to the barn in the morning. I did not like what I was seeing. And I said to my wife, I'm quitting now. And that was 2 years ago.
Well, there's been a fairly alarming number of horsemen that have really had enough, and whether they're going to leave the industry entirely or whether they're going to do bloodstock work.
Well, Jimmy Jerkins winded up in Saudi Arabia, I think.
It's just a tough situation when a guy like Jimmy can't attract business with his resume. That's when you know you've got to make plans for yourself. If you have only got a dozen horses, you better start thinking ahead about what you're going to do if you want to stay in the game.
We say this all the time too, and not to use Jimmy as the poster for it, but not every trainer has the personality wherewithal to go out there and merchandise themselves.
Right.
And whether it's a question of social media, utilizing that, whether it's you already are a group of people that wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to attend to, a nonverbal group of trainees, and you dedicate your life to, the animal and the care and maintenance of them. Not everybody that has that personality is cut out to be out, hobnobbing and trying to sell themselves.
Right.
And Jimmy's as appropriate an example of this as anybody. And so as owners, as some of the old school owners died, essentially, look at Charlie Lepresti.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Charlie Lepresti got pressed into service, and when oh my gosh,
Why is that?
yes, I'm from Chicago. Oh my God, when he passed away, Charlie. I mean, he wasn't going to go out and find a bunch of new owners. And he's got he and Amy have their training. They develop young horses from yearlings into 2-year-olds, and so they went back to that full time. But not everybody is cut out to do all the other things that are involved in this, beside just training horses. The administrative part of it. You talk about the employees, the business end of it, the keeping track of all the workman's comp stuff, the labor department. One of the reasons that the backstretch has become a target, an easy target for the labor departments, is because this is always been a business that was treated as an agricultural approach in terms of a day rate for employees, not a punch clock hourly. And so when the labor department comes here, they're looking for low-hanging fruit. And then every time that there's a fine, it makes the industry look terrible. It makes horsemen that aren't cheating anybody, makes them look like, they're taking advantage of their help. That isn't, there's so many, at every turn, there are challenges here that are just unlike any other industry.
So that's on the owners then. Because I always question the wisdom of owners not wanting to support a guy like Jimmy Jerkins. Why wouldn't he be able to get some good horses? And who knows the reasons for it? I'll give you an example. In the winter of '97 at Gulfstream, I had my best winter ever. I started 60 horses, won 20 races. I thought to myself, this is a good time to try California. I went to California for 2 years. I was there a couple of months, and I won 2 races one day at Hollywood. And I said, let me just utilize this. I sent out a letter to maybe 8 big owners out there that had multiple trainers. Didn't want to step on anyone's toes. Had multiple trainers. Introducing myself. I won 2 races the other day at Hollywood. Would you please consider sending me a horse? Not only did I not get a horse, I didn't even get a reply from the letters. So I don't know how owners think. And that's a big thing. So whether you're up there schmoozing in the afternoons, I don't know if that's what it takes. Whether you're just a hardworking guy that gets up at 4 a.m. like David Donk and pays attention to every detail on every horse, I don't know what it takes to make owners come your way. And I saw that writing on the wall back in California in the late 90s, and that's what propelled me to get into breeding. I said, I'm going to have to do something myself here if I want to stay in the business. And that's when I started studying breeding racehorses.
Well, talk a little bit about that. What's the retirement been like? And you're still involved in the game on the breeding side then?
Yes, so we're still breeding. So, we've got a partnership now of 10 horses, Steve, Chris, Ken Direct, and myself, and our wives. And we keep them out here at Mill Creek with Ann Morgan, does a spectacular job with our horses. And we've got mares in foal. We've got foals by their side. We've got a yearling by Vino Rosso. We just sent to Niall Brennan to be broken. He'll come to David in the spring. So we're all over the map. We're trying not to let it exponentially just grow out of hand, get crazy. So we're going to keep an eye on that. 10 is enough. And if you count Yes and Yes, which is my other partnership, it's 11. So that's enough. So that's what we do. We breed. The guys, my partners, defer to me on the breeding decisions. We collectively pick stallions, and I run them through my program as far as whether they'll meet that criteria or not, and go from there.
Where are you based now?
Live here in Boston Spa.
Oh, okay.
We moved
your
here.
neighbor.
Yeah,
I'm in Boston Spa too.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the winter was very cold. In fact, it was brutal. It was brutal.
For a guy who spent years at Calder.
47 years in Miami. So we are going to break it up this winter and take a break for 6 weeks and go to Florida, my wife and I, just to break it up.
Summer is gorgeous.
Summer, there's nowhere better to be.
Summer's great.
It's not, I told you in the paddock yesterday, win or lose, it's not lost on me running in a stake on a Saturday afternoon at Saratoga, the mecca of horse racing worldwide.
Well, it even under the conditions as they were, and even under some duress, it's still. I've bristled, in fact, the last 10 days at this. Can't wait for the meet to end. No. I would tend to disagree. There's no rush for it to end.
As we not to make a pun, but as we've got away from being under the cloud of bad weather, this last few days has been Saratoga the way we all think it's Saratoga.
It's Chamber of Commerce weather. I was here front and center, sat in a box with my wife for a mail when she broke down, and I was so I was in shock by that, and I questioned to myself whether I what I was doing. I think we all did. We all had that reaction. But you get through that, and you try to do things to help that to help the situation moving forward, and to circle back to the synthetics, which I know you were going to talk about. There's a place for them, but they're not the only thing.
Yeah.
But that's for a debate, I guess, with people who run the racetracks. But we all have a say.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Phil, as always, delighted to have you, and thrilled for yesterday's win. It was pretty magical.
And Steve said
Yeah.
that it was magical.
Yeah.
I've never seen Steve so emotional. He's a very stoic guy, very low key guy. Nothing gets. He was excited yesterday, and I think fortunately, this ownership experience is the icing on a brilliant career.
Yeah, big time, without a doubt. And he came up. That topic came up during the. I'll have him back on the radio this week after, we talked about the surface topic. I want him just to feel, the thrill of yesterday. You could really. It was really palpable. I mean, and it's all. It's not just Steve. It's more. To some degree, it all emanates from Harvey and the universal affection for Harvey Pack,
right?
And what he meant to so many horse players, and not just limited to New York either. I mean, we basically knew him best, and we're the ones who got to see him on television most often, or over at Ciro's with the seminars. But I mean, he just brought so many people into the game. He enhanced so many people's pleasure for the game, and that is what was the sort of the seed that made yesterday so special.
It was so great, and like you said, the chances of it happening, we knew it had to take a miracle, and we got a small miracle yesterday in our little world. Harvey was a super guy. I knew him pretty well as well, and loved Harvey. Getting back to Steve was a solid, just like Harvey, just nitty-gritty handicapper horse player. And since this ownership thing, and you can attest to this, he's become this horse lover. And these horses, the Duke, we have a thing. And our other partner was in the Caribbean. We all texted each other yesterday morning saying Happy Duke Day. That's what we do. We just love it. And we all love race days. And I've seen that big change in Steve that way. He loves these horses.
Nice.
Now, they were getting an interview with Steve after the race, but you had the big smile on your face. You came over the rail and stood next to me. You were watching the replay. So I guess that was the first of a few times it went through the replays. You say couldn't get to sleep. It was a lot of fun, certainly. Great. And we're happy to have you in here.
Thank you, Seth. I appreciate it, Steve. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure. Anytime.
Phil Gleaves, again, with the nice win yesterday in the stake, the Harvey Pack, along with partner Steve Chris. All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back and wrap it up for today and for this season on Loose on the Lead. Stick around.
Come on.
I want sales reports on my desk by Monday.
Whoops. My bad.
Love racing? RTN brings you every live simulcast on your home television, plus live video streaming and race replays on your PC and mobile devices. To order, visit rtn.tv. RTN, a breed apart.
Birdstone is an outside threat. They're coming down to the finish. Can Smarty Jones hold on? Here comes Birdstone. Birdstone surges past. Birdstone wins the Belmont Stakes. In front, but here comes High Chaparral. High Chaparral, the defending champ, to take it to Falbrough. These two arch rivals head to head with Joe Hart bearing down on them. It's going to be a 3-horse photo finish to the turn. Here's the wire. Photo finish.
Welcome back to Loose on the Lead on this Sunday morning. Again, final Sunday of the meet, final Sunday for Loose on the Lead. Seth Merrow and Steve Bick. Steve, it's always melancholy. Last year, we talked the last show about having you come into the studio and doing a little stuff in the studio. And then, as usual, you're out of town like
I know.
But
we'll do it. I will. You'll.
Because the guys in the control room want the radio bars and
exactly. They just want stuff from Bella Napoli. That's it. They don't care if I come. I could get in.
I got to admit, I like the radio bars too.
I could get DoorDash. That's what I'll do. I'll just get some DoorDash delivery.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, very good.
And you'll
very good.
It is. It's always melancholy. We'll do a wrap up. A couple of notes from yesterday.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have gotten Brett Brinkman over here. This is a great story. And the dam that's sitting at the bar that has been so productive. This is now his second prioress in 3 years.
Yeah.
Because even though it doesn't show Brett's name on the 3 years ago, also was a winner. Charlie Baker in the program, just administratively, but Brett Brinkman trained Scylla as well. This Alva Star, you wondered, it was all speed, this group, except for Jersey Pearl, who ended up second. You figured she was going to maybe get a chance to go after Dazzling Blue and Alva Star, and maybe they would soften each other up. And instead, this Alva Star just blitzkrieged this group. Not a big field. The figure might be up by now. It wasn't up earlier, but boy, oh boy, when they come from Louisiana, Brett Brinkman is based in Vinton at Delta Downs, the home of the Sabine Sand, and that was super impressive, winning another prioress. And as I told him, now it'll say forever, graded stake winning trainer because of the prioress win. There were a few other nice performances, too. General Partner, that race yesterday, the 7 furlong, 7th race. General Partner, Dive Bomber, Jefferson Street, and Enlightened. Those were the 4 to consider. General Partner and Dive Bomber had the benefit of experience, and they run 1-2. That's going to be a hot race going forward. That Jefferson Street of Mott's had been signaled and indicated as a hot property. And speaking of Jimmy Jerkins and his clients, Centennial, Doolittle had told us weeks ago that Enlighten was going to run at the end of the meet, and that he was a nice colt. He ended up 4th in here, and he was beaten. He's well beaten, but he got the experience. So watch for all 3 of those. Dive Bomber from Brad Cox, and Mott, who's had a tremendous meet and has got a hat full of good babies.
The one I wanted to mention, and maybe they can pull up the replay from earlier this week, Bill Mott making a good move, cross-entering Galabrand, and gets in against the boys in the with anticipation, which worked out in a couple of ways. I think she got a softer field against the boys, but the filly version the day before got moved off the turf. So they get the turf they want. I liked her in here, and she ran very, very well in the with anticipation. Galabrand, again, another part of that really, really good 2023 Saratoga season for Bill Mott.
Well, what was interesting, there's Galabrand with the win the other day, and I thought yesterday was interesting, Seth, from a betting standpoint. That General Partner paid $9.30, $9 on Alva Star was a very generous number. Thin White Duke, we didn't really talk about it with Phil, but there was concern, I thought, about how much pace there was. And it didn't matter, but 9-1, $20.40 on Thin White Duke was a tremendous price. And then you had Dracon in the nightcap beat Fredo 21-1 over 17-1. You had Missing Fortune at 17-1. That was that Dana Saul and Kai Barcoa winning at 17-1. So you end up with this pick 6 carryover. For people who've been complaining about prices, yesterday, even the logicals, there were some nice numbers. And then, you had to be very clever. Dracon, I thought, was very tough to get to. Fredo had a look, actually. If Fredo had won that photo in the 10th, that wouldn't have been surprising. And even Bright Future paying $950, I thought was a nice number. A horse that, basically.
Fletcher horse in the first race paying 16. Life's an Audible. With Irad on board.
Yes,
Fletcher and Irad,
that's right.
16,
That's right.
16
That's
bucks.
right.
So that was a little bit of a price.
No,
the one that got me was Ludwig, $22. And I mentioned on the handicapping show, I'll invite people to go pull up the photo on the website. You can't have a photo any closer to not being a dead heat. And that one was a charity play for me, a pick 3. It knocked me out of a pick 3 for my charity bet for the TRF. I hit a couple other bets and made them 150. So the day worked out well, but it would have been a lot nicer. But for that, as I say, razor thin photo got me there.
Ruben Silvera getting the win on Dream Road in the nightcap, and that was that horse was very playable.
Yeah,
Dream Road in the nightcap, and in fact, 12-1, over 9-1, over 11-1, over 46
like
to
1.
Where
there was crazy prices in the superfecta. Kevin Cox had the Kai Barcoa as his play of the day yesterday, but I will congratulate you on a great play of the day, and 2 more to go for you. But for the folks who made the play of the day bankroll team, you will all wind up with a nice little chunk of change at the end of the meet, perhaps getting better. Good luck over the next couple of days with your play, which so far you've knocked out of the park.
It's been fun. It's a fun exercise because philosophically, when you have the moniker play of the day, all right, well, what constitutes a play of the day? Is it the most logical winner on the card, the horse most likely to win? For me, a play of the day should be, especially in this context, because we're trying to accrue money for this bankroll project. To me, it's who on the card is priced disproportionately to the potential to win.
Yeah.
So I don't care if that's sometimes that might be 4-1, but more often it's 6-1, 8-1, 10-1, 12-1. That middle price long shot has always been, my approach to betting has changed over the years a little bit, but my initial philosophy was always I want key horses that have a big shot at a square price. So that's my approach to it.
And you alluded to it a moment ago. To me, I have to do a best bet in the Times Union every day. Best bet play of the day is not most likely winner. That to me isn't the best bet. The best bet is, you find a kind of a clever price that is live, and that becomes the best bet or the play of the day. And again, you've done very well there.
The guys on my website, they've been doing these 2 horse a day offerings, one as a best bet and then one as a value. And in some cases they intersect. They're closer in price, 7-2 and 4-1 or 6-1. But taking like that Bear Oak we talked about from last week. Bear Oak, the Norm Cassie horse that was 15-1 on the line and went off at 17-1. That's that's the kind of horse that if you've got something to latch onto and play off of, and that you can envision, those are prime bets, as opposed to action bets where sometimes you look at a card and there just isn't anything that looks productive and fruitful. There's so many different ways to win. That's the key.
All right, I'm being told in my ear with the 12:40 post time, they're firing up the NYRA pregame show, so we'll get to that, but we'll wrap it up again, not just for this morning, but for the meet as well. It's been fun. We got you a little extra because you didn't make the Del Mar trip that was planned, so that was always
you got an extra week out of me.
That was very good, and I think as usual, it's been fun over on the front side. There's been a lot of great feedback every Sunday. Folks appreciate the Laurel and Hardy, Evan Costello. It's always fun. So
it's an odd couple. It's always been an odd couple kind of a presentation. Born a Gambler, by the way, is today's the Paula play of the day. in the 7th. That's the 3 at 8-1. And tomorrow I made Scherzando.
Your horse.
Nice. Our horse in the 5th tomorrow, who's the 6th, and hope to. I literally will. After the race tomorrow, I literally am getting in the car to start toward Kentucky Downs. We'll be doing the radio. We'll do the radio show Tuesday from Erie, from Presque Isle, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday at Kentucky Downs. Then next week, the week after, I should say, Keeneland. The first 2 days of Keeneland, book 1, back to Kentucky Downs, then Churchill, and then back to Presque Isle for the Masters. That's
as I said last year. We had the Sundays planned, but then you're
no.
All right, we'll wrap it up. Don't forget, double promo today at the Clubhouse Racebook. If you're coming up here, $250,000 pick 6 carryover, your last shot at the Low Rollers contest, and the bonus giveaway on your way out today after 4:00. You can get a cooler jug. So keep all of that in mind if you're headed up to the track. All right, Seth Merrow, Steve Bick, wrapping it up for this edition of Loose on the Lead, as well as the season. One more morning here up at the racetrack, though. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. handicapper support, 10 a.m. racing across America. We'll see you then.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.